Tuesday on NBC. Jimmy Fallon and Bozoma St. John host the highly anticipated new competition show.
I hired 10 creatives from all walks of life. They will be battling it out to see who can impress the world's biggest brands.
This is a huge opportunity.
This is the battle for the next big idea.
This is not play.
We're spending millions of dollars.
I'm so excited to embark on this adventure with all of you.
May the best idea win!
On Brand with Jimmy Fallon. Series premiere Tuesday on NBC.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hello, this is William Tincup, Ryan Leary, and you are listening and watching the You Should Know podcast. We have Nellie Wartoft. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Wartoft, yeah, correct.
Okay.
Wartoft.
Just gotta get the T at the end of that.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Very, yeah, no. Nellie, how you doing today?
I'm good, very well. Sun is shining in California, so I'm happy.
So we're going to be talking about employee experience and change management, kind of how those two things are intersecting, colliding, etc. So why don't you first introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, and then we'll lead into some research after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nellie Wartoft, founder and CEO of Tigerhall, originally grew up in Sweden, moved to Singapore when I was 18, so I've spent a large portion of my career in Singapore and Asia, and that's where I founded Tigerhall originally. And I founded Tigerhall to enable people to connect and overcome obstacles and share knowledge in a more efficient way. And we started working with enterprises in 2020 and supporting them through large-scale transformation, large-scale changes, and especially driving that kind of change and transformation with their organizations instead of against them. So what we're doing today, we call it the transformation trifecta, where you have the people and training side of things, you have the communication side of things, and the change management side of things all in one platform. So it's easy to manage and to run that at large scale. So we work with large enterprises across the US and the world on these topics around change, transformation, and employee experience.
So I'm most I guess familiar with technology change, so software change, right? So when they implement a new HRIS or some type of software program, so I'm familiar with tech change, but not other types of organizational change. So for the audience, what are some of the types of projects? You're not customers or anything like that, but the types of projects that you're talking about.
So very common would be commercial transformation. So changing how you go to market, moving customer segment, launching a new market, culture transformation, which many times they go hand in hand. For example, if you're a tech company, you want to move from selling hardware to selling software, becoming a SaaS business. That's both a go-to-market change and a cultural transformation. And then you have all the organizational changes, a lot of restructuring. So a lot of what we work on is actually restructuring exercises. And when people don't know, are they going to have a job or not? Which company are they going to? Things like divestitures, could also be mergers, acquisitions, bringing companies together. So I want to say like culture is usually part of all of them, but that's kind of the underlying layer of whether it's a divestiture or a go-to-market change or some kind of strategic initiative. Could even be like, we want to implement AI in our business model, or we want to be more sustainable. So any kind of strategic initiative and how you drive the culture and the people with that.
So I know we're going to get into, Nellie, some research and things that you're seeing in the market, but maybe start us off with what is the big trends? What are you seeing today in the market that's driving some of your conversations?
Yeah, so I mean, change is the only constant, right? And I think that's what everyone is agreeing on more and more. And the entire space of change and transformation has grown massively over the last 3 years. Like just last year, for example, in the US alone, there were 60,000 new jobs added in change management and transformation. So some of the things we're seeing is that they're starting a lot of offices to fully manage this because they realize that we can't really have people doing this as a side project or like a stretch assignment to drive this transformation. We need a proper office to handle it. And I'm also the chair of the Executive Council for Leading Change, where we're about 250 members, senior executives in the space, and a lot of trends there as well. You have people coming from maybe marketing backgrounds, finance, sales, and now they're suddenly the chief transformation officer. So they're all tasked with building out this transformation capability. So that's a big trend we're seeing is companies seeing that we can't just hand this off to the CFO temporarily. We need a sustainable, permanent practice. And that's usually called a transformation office. Sometimes they transform the PMO office, project management, and make that into a transformation office. But many times they build it from scratch. So that's one. And just the growth of the space in general. The second thing we're seeing is that there are more changes, to your question, William, on what kind of changes, there are more of them intersecting. So while 5 to 10 years ago, you might have had, okay, we're doing this software change or an ERP implementation, or we're adding a product, or we want to be a little bit more innovative. Whereas now the type of changes are usually many at the same time and also larger in scale. And most of them, even if you're doing only divestiture, then that comes with a whole culture transformation and commercial transformation as well. So they combine them. And this is why we're seeing so much increase in the number of changes that people experience. So there's some great research from Gartner on this, where they had looked at how many changes are employees experiencing per year. And in 2016, that number was 2. So every year, 2 big changes for every employee they had to experience. In 2023, that number was 12. So every single month, you have a large, significant change and transformation hitting you. And usually many employees are at the intersection of many of these, right? So they might sit in the commercial team driving that commercial transformation. They also are supposed to drive the culture transformation that is part of it. They might take a role in integrating a new merger, and like they're part of many of these changes. So yeah, from 2 to 12 in the span of 7 years.
It's going to impact them some way or another. And that's load balance if it's 1 a month, but you know how it plays out. It's 9 in 1 month and 3 for the rest of the year. It kind of hits them in different ways. Several questions. We'll just go with one for right now. When I was interacting with a lot of user adoption stuff with tech change,
Hey, this is Brent Skinner, host of Small Talk Window here at the Work Defined Podcasting Network. Have you ever wanted a short podcast to listen to during a coffee break of your workday? You've come to the right place. My guests dispense with the small talk as quickly as possible and settle into a meaningful conversation around the world of work.
it was exactly what you said, like a stretch. It wasn't a person that was a full-time job. It was somebody that basically got tagged to help implement and then get user adoption. And I always wondered if that would develop, like what you know, transformation offices, whether it's process or technology or whatever. But I also saw with some of those projects that internally they had difficulty getting their peers to change. Like they were a little tone deaf because they were internal. Now, a chief transformation officer, okay, probably listening to that person, got it. But someone that was tasked with something to handle it, their peers would almost ignore it as opposed to a third party. Third party comes in, says, okay, you have to do this. They'd listen to that. But the internal person saying that the exact same thing, they wouldn't listen. So what's been your experience through the years of kind of the internal people, but also their peer group listening to them about change or consuming that change?
Yeah. And that's always the hardest, right? Like people always say that like change is constant and I love change as long as it's not happening to me. So that's the thing. The last thing that people want to change is themselves. And it's funny when look at leaders, right? There was an article I read about this where someone had put a group of leaders in a room and asked them, like, how much of your time do you spend tripping around other people's egos and like managing politics with them and trying to get them to agree, like just like the whole ego side of thing. And these leaders responded, around 20 to 30% of my time goes into tripping around other people's egos. And then they flipped the question and they asked, okay, how much time do you think your teams and peers are spending tripping around your ego? It was silent.
Not 20, 30% of the time.
A lot more.
Exactly. And then they were just quiet and they had nothing to say, right? So I think that's
actually avoiding them because of fear. Fear of them.
Retaliation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly.
one of the things about change is it can be seen through different eyes. It can be seen differently. So an executive can look at it one way, a manager can look at it one way, and an employee can look at it completely differently. And I think, Ryan, to your point, if the employee voices that opinion, there's fear of retaliation. Yeah. So, but that's where the juice is. That's where some of the good stuff is like, wait a minute, why are we doing this? Because sometimes it's not communicated. It's not explained very well. I mean, speaking specifically of tech change, the communication strategy of the technology changes horrendous, like horrendous. Internal.
It's horrible.
Of understanding the why. Why are we moving from A to B? Like everyone should know. Why is it secret?
Yeah, well, we just had the conversation with Phil, and he was explaining. So Nellie, he was sharing a story of a manager, a leader that came in and had said, okay, we need to let these people go, and it was because they were resistant to and couldn't understand how to use the new tech. But when he dug behind the situation, it was like, okay, you knew 12 months ago. You were bringing the new solution in. You started bringing it in 12 months ago, and now you're giving it to them a week before. You expect them to master it. Right. And he said, we should fire you for not disseminating that information. So I guess it was interesting that when you brought that up. But I guess my question here is, outside of just the mass amount of people, a 10,000, 100,000 person organization, difficult. I get it. But why is it difficult for a company to just change? Why can't they manage to change?
I think why is it difficult for a 100,000 person organization too? It shouldn't be any harder for them. Yes, there's more people, but there are different ways of doing it. And I was speaking with a chief transformation officer a couple of weeks ago for a company with 80,000 employees. And I asked him, how do you drive the change with these 80,000 employees? And his response was, me and my team, we send 10 emails a day. So I was like, you send 800,000 emails every day. That is your change management strategy. And this is a huge financial group. And I think that lies a big part of the problem lies there, right? And a big thing is also how the content consumption preferences have evolved massively over the last 10 years, right? I mean, again, if we take the 2016 year, there was 0 TikTok users in the US, which is very hard to believe right now, 0.
I know.
And now it's over 150 million Americans who spend their day scrolling short videos,
Half of America.
So
2016, really?
Yeah. TikTok did not exist.
I feel like it's been here a lot longer than 2016.
Yeah, 2016 there were 0 Americans on TikTok, and today half of America is on TikTok. So I think that is just one point to show how much people have adopted these like short form videos, how much people listen to podcasts, and people are not reading long documents anymore. I was with a CHRO who told me like Nellie, nobody opens my emails. Like, why are they not opening my emails? Is that because nobody knows you? Like, nobody knows who you are. You're an anonymous person in HQ. And when you send emails, you're literally just an anonymous name in their inbox. And the same for this chief transformation officer. I'm like, if you're sending that out, like, they're not going to care what comes from a global HQ, right? And to the point that you mentioned earlier, on like, why is it so hard for peers to get it and get the change? in having that outside in perspective, that is very key, but also who delivers it internally. And many times this comes from, as much as companies are building these centralized headquarter transformation offices, communications should not come 100% from there, because people don't know those people. They don't care who sits in headquarters, and they don't care about these HQ people that are sending out 10 emails a day. So the way that we deliver the message has to change, both in terms of the kind of format we deliver it in, who it comes from, and thinking through that method and comm strategy a lot better.
Yeah, it's audience specific. So what works for ExxonMobil won't work for Kimberly-Clark. That won't work for Walmart. It's got to be dependent on the audience that you're trying to reach, and then you work backwards.
And even the audience inside. Even the audience within a Kimberly-Clark, right? You can't send the same message to everyone in Kimberly-Clark. You need to think
100%.
about specific audience even within companies. And if you're an 80,000, 100,000 person organization, that might be 2,000 audiences that you need to talk to differently.
That's a really, really good point. Yeah. Ryan would have all of those emails filtered to trash. He'd never see them. It would just be like, this email goes into this box folder.
Email is the people tell us, what did was it your son that said it's a boomer board? Google.
Yeah.
Right. Email's like the boomer box for me. Right. Like it's just like in fact, when he sends an email to me, or even a client, he gets me on chat and says, "Hey, check your email." Because he knows I'm not going to see it. And it's not that I don't want to see it.
No. It's just, there's a difference. It's just a different preference.
Yeah.
So I think Ryan, at the heart of your question is, like, when you drive from your home to your favorite bait shop, right? You drive the exact same way every time. You don't take 19 different ways to it, right? Yeah. So humans we're oriented around kind of, once we've got a pattern, we just stay with that pattern. That's the pattern we know. That's the pattern we become comfortable with, and we just stay in that pattern. And I think a lot of organizational change kind of comes down to, you're shifting with that old book, Who Moved My Cheese? You're shifting things for them. A lot of companies aren't explaining why. Hey, this is being shifted. This will be actually better for you once we get through the part of, okay, you have to learn something new. But I think it's that, or maybe the status quo, and the jaded or really, really, really cynical part of me would think that the people that don't like change are more like bureaucrats that just think, I don't really have to worry about this, because by the time I have to worry about it, they will be changing something else.
Right. How does it affect me today? And then by the time I care about it, you've already changed what you've changed to affect me before.
Now that's a really cynical. That's a very cynical perspective, by the way. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. However, I do believe in large companies that can happen. So
this is why companies and people like Nellie exist, to prevent this from happening.
Seek out people like me.
No, to hire people like you and fix 100%. Companies that you work
100%. 100%.
But people actually aren't afraid of change necessarily. Right. But what they are afraid of is change of identity and loss of identity. And they're afraid of the loss that comes with that change. Because the change itself is not harmful, right? But something I spend a lot of time thinking about is how people identify. And the people I see having the hardest time with change are the ones that have a very core identity that is tied to things that are changing. So let's say your identity is the title you have in the company you work for, and then you get laid off. Massive trauma, right? Because that affects your entire identity. Or if you see yourself as say you're an EA and you're proud of your type speed, right? And then AI comes, if that's your identity, how fast you type, then you're going to be very against AI. But if your identity is, I am a very forward-thinking professional, then you're going to be happy to be driving change, right? So I actually think a big part of this comes down to how people identify and how they view themselves, and if they view themselves in ways that are changing.
I can validate that from the work that I did in payroll, that it wasn't the payroll tech from A to B. It was that the clerk or the person that was the admin, they were steeped in that product. And they knew the ins and outs. They knew how to break it. They knew all that stuff. They knew their bodies were buried. And so they had to learn a brand new technology, start over, essentially. And so I'd tell people, I'm like, they're confident and competent in this technology, and you're taking it away. Doesn't matter that you're moving to a better technology. It, you know, they'll get that, but the problem is that interim step of like, hey, we understand. You spent 20 years in this payroll tech, and now we're moving over to a more sophisticated payroll tech, and you're going to have to learn a bunch of new stuff. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to get you a bunch of training. We're going to send you to a couple places. Like, there's ways companies can change that they can make that change easier for people. But it's almost like they have to be intuitive and thoughtful about understanding how it impacts the individual.
Yeah, and helping them find that new identity and helping them see themselves as a modern payroll professional as opposed to an expert in system X, right? It's
just like divorce. I'm not divorced, but this is what I know of divorce. The faster that the people go on and get married or get into other relationships, the easier the divorce. So
and sometimes that's the reason for the divorce as well. So
yeah, the second divorces, by the way, the divorce rate is way high. But if you just look at the A to B of like if both parties get on with their lives and then they're partnered up, whether or not they're married or not, if they're partnered up within a year with other people, it's not near as contentious. So there's the delta of change.
I said this last night to somebody. We were talking in a group, and someone was talking about divorce. I said, if we ever got divorced, and Erica, my wife, Nellie, was sitting right now, I said, I don't think I'd want any relationship ever again. Like, I'm just gone. Like, once we're done, we're done. Like, we'll do the divorce thing. We have the family, the kids, the whole thing. Yeah, but I think I'm going to be a loner. If that ever happened, I would be a loner.
My wife made the mistake. You know how this goes, right? So I'm so dark. My wife, we have this conversation. This is years ago. We married 30 years. Years ago, she goes, I'll never remarry.
Raise the rudder! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The Hilton sale is on. For 10 days only, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Don't wait. The sale ends September 29th. Book your stay and save at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton, for the stay.
I said, listen, here's what my best advice. I'm dead, marry rich. Just find the richest. You no money. Find the richest guy or gal. Doesn't matter. Who gives a shit? Just go find someone rich and then go have fun.
Go to Houston.
Go to Houston. I'm not gonna do it. I don't, blah 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 blah. And she goes, "What would you do if I died?" I'm like,
"I'd do the same thing.
I'd get a mail order bride." She's like, "What?" I said, probably man. Russian. I don't really care if they understand English or anything. Yeah, just somebody that can like keep me organized. That's all I really need.
How do we get from change management and change?
Because this is change. This is the essence of change. All right, I'll ask a real question around
the essence of
change.
Essence of change is getting a Russian wife. Then it would also.
There's the title. You said this wouldn't be the title. That's the title.
I just need someone to organize me. That's all. I don't really care.
We'll have an AI assistant in about a half a year.
Good point.
Yeah, and an AI wife as well.
Well,
that one alone.
That goes in a lot of directions. So Nellie, I did, because you brought up AI. Some things that we've been kind of playing with is AI within the organizations that you're thinking about change. Is it siloed, or is it an AI office that kind of manages all AI transformation? So what are you thinking about? Because you're obviously thinking about this a whole lot more than we are. But like we see a lot of AI and TA and HR. But AI is going on in all the other parts of the organization, but just Ryan and I's focus is on work. So that's all the stuff that we kind of see. But like if we'll use we use the Kimberly-Clark just as an example. Would you think that they need to have it siloed off, and so it's specific to, or do you think that there should be an office like transformation that basically helps them look at AI across the organization?
Yeah. So I think there's been a pendulum. Like since, if we take November 2022, which was when it really broke, right, with ChatGPT and this whole conversation started, I think the pendulum initially went very much to everyone is using it. Everyone brought in, like, they started using ChatGPT. They started putting confidential documents out on the internet, and it just went like quite nuts immediately, right? And then the pendulum very quickly, with the fear that exists in a big part of corporate America, there's a lot of fear for good reasons many times. And then the pendulum swing back to, okay, we need to control this. So where we are right now, and what I'm seeing is that AI is now sitting in that transformation office, and it's usually transformation offices that manage it centrally. And for the reason that AI has now become something, there's a huge legal and compliance and ethics problem. And the control around, especially around what documents you put in, like the input of it, if we talk about generative AI, which kind of the whole AI discussion has become just generative AI, which I also find a bit interesting. Like we forgot the other 99% of AI and everything's just Gen AI. But if we focus on Gen AI, the input requires a lot of regulation and control and so on. So corporations are now extremely centralizing it and focusing it in one place. And everyone is talking about AI policy. And as a vendor, when we onboard with companies, we now see added controls around AI, because we use a lot of AI in our product. And then they have special AI questionnaires and AI cybersecurity onboarding and so on to control the type of AI that we use. But I do think that this pendulum will swing back the other way again in about a year or so, maybe towards the end of this year. And we will start to see more distributed use and control of AI as well. So I think we're at a place right now where corporations are freaking out a bit, frankly, and 100%. They don't really know how to handle it. And I've also heard of countless Fortune 500 firms that have completely banned it, just banned it outright. And that is like being in the 90s and saying that the internet was a fluke, right? Like, that's not the way to handle innovation.
I love the reference. I'm going to steal that.
I'm going to go ahead and put my head in the sand.
I'm going to maybe use that.
I'll just let it pass by. It'll go by.
just ban it. Like, no one can use it. Speaking to employees who were just like, no way. Like, we don't. It was someone telling me, like, we had this chat about around a round table, and this person was like, oh yeah, we don't use AI at all. I'm like, what do you mean, like, not using it at all? Like, like, we just, like, banned it. And I'm like, but in your personal, no, we're banned from using ChatGPT on, like, all devices. Like, we just cannot be in touch with it at all.
Even at home or on all work products?
All work products. But devices, even, like, your phone and, like, everything, like, all work devices.
That's insane.
But they just have this guidance to not use AI, like, just stay away from it, it will pass. So very much like, head in the sand.
Wow.
So, and like, you don't want to be that person, so
no.
No.
Wow, that is fascinating.
You definitely don't want to work for that company.
I'll say that. No, that was my first thought. I was like, why are you still there?
Yeah, I can imagine the interview process. It's good Lord.
Yeah. Well, and again, the thing about the innovation of what's being lost, again, it's kind of like the internet. It's a great way of looking at the beginning. 1997, the internet was not the internet that we have today, right? I think we can all agree on that. And there was a lot of misses. So there's a lot of wild pitches and a lot of misses. And there were people that did think, who cares? Let's let it go, whatever. And they just thought it was a fad. Yep, that's fair. This isn't that. This just isn't that. It's just woven too much into everything else. Consumerization.
When I think people have learned from history.
Oh no, no one learns from history. Hard stop.
That's not true. I learned a lot from you about history.
Well, no, but I mean, learning from history now.
No, I know.
We're not good at that.
Nellie, where are companies missing in change? And you kind of covered it throughout the entire conversation thus far, but where are you seeing companies that you're working with where you go into a company and you're kind of like, why? Why are we doing this, right? Why are we changing? Do you absolutely need to change? And whatever that change
that's a good question.
But second, do you just ever look at them and say, yeah, I can't even help you? Like, what are you seeing in there?
That's a good question. It is the feeling we have sometimes, like you can't be helped. And the ones who ban AI, I'm like, yeah, you're probably
you're too far. It's a bridge too far. I'm sorry. You know what? Good meeting, and we're gonna go. Do y'all validate? No. All right.
Yeah.
We're out of here.
But I think a few big mistakes that people do that I see over and over again. One is too many changes happening at once. I think that's the most common, and they load it up and up. And then in combination / conjunction with that is not removing what doesn't need to be changed, or like taking things off of people's plate. So they just add, and they have like, okay, we have 3 large changes, and then we're also adding all these small projects around it. And you also need to do all your BAU job, and we're not going to say that anything is not important. So I think that entire positioning of it is a mistake that people usually do in the beginning. And then 3 to 9 months down the line, they go, oh crap, like this is not going to work because we don't have the capacity, we don't have the bandwidth, we don't have the focus. And when you tell people, like you have to always tell people what is not important, because actually that's even harder than to tell them what is important, because everything is important. But by telling them you don't need to focus on this, or like this is not important. So I think that's number one. The second thing I see companies screw up all the time is communication. They're so bad at communication. And what do? Oh, let's set up a SharePoint site. We already have 65,000 SharePoint sites. So why don't we have SharePoint site number 65,001? How great. What a brilliant idea. And then, of course, everyone is going to come into that SharePoint site, right? They're just going to flock to the SharePoint site. They're going to read all your PDF documents. They're going to be so engaged. Never ever happens.
Never.
And communications just always, that's where it ends. And some people are like, oh yeah, because people want a bit of like two-way interaction, and then they set up like a special email inbox and expect people to email their questions to this email inbox, which is also like, not really going to happen.
Just goes into nowhere.
Yeah, I feel like she's talking about the company that doesn't use AI.
No, these are companies. These are companies that actually are trying to change.
Yeah, I mean, these are some of the most innovative companies externally. Like when you look at the companies I'm talking about, you would think these companies are ahead of the curve, but these are still the things they're doing on the inside.
Is this just because they don't have the proper people running or leading change, and they just don't get it? Or like it seems like basic stuff.
Yeah. Like to you and me, it's basic, right? But I think many people, they just don't know any alternative. They don't think along these lines, like how can we better engage people? How can we get this message out to the right people at the right time? That's another big problem in comms. They send these 10 emails and then they think, oh, my job here is done because I've sent the 10 emails. And I'm like, no, it's not done, because it's about how do the people receive it on the other end. And your job is not done until they have consumed it, understood it, if they have any questions, reflections. Right. So it's very much an input mindset as opposed to an output mindset. And I think the default is like, oh, let's rely on email and SharePoint because it's what we've had for the last 20, 30 years. And they just don't know of any other option.
The irony is they're asking the organization to change, yet they're using the same tactics that haven't been changed. Not lost on me. Nellie, when I studied user adoption for a couple of years of my life, and this is all tech-related change, it kind of came down to 3 things. It came down to kind of training, communications, and incentivizing. And one of the things that people would always ask me, still do, quite frankly, they ask me the same question, like, how do I get people to use the software that I bought? I'm like, pay them. They're like, what do you mean pay them? Like, it's not their job to use your software. You bought software because it's a business decision that you made to hopefully help them do whatever. That's not their job. Rarely is it their job to use a piece of software that you bought. So you want them to use it? Incentivize them. Rewards and recognition. Find a way to train the hell out of them, communicate really well to where they understand the why and all that other stuff. And then just give them an incentive. Hey, the first person that goes through and gets accredited on this new software, gets $1,000. Guess what you'll get? User adoption. People will start to use the software because they're like, okay, they understand why. They've been trained, so they get how it makes their life better and all that other stuff. And oh, by the way, it's recognized that this isn't my job, but I have an incentive to take this on extra. And I think that's some of the things that happen in organizational change is changes in anywhere in the job description for somebody outside of the people in transformation. All right. But if you're a marketing demand generation director, there's nowhere in the job description does it say, oh yeah, by the way, consume change.
Leading a growing business, it's like building a plane while flying it. Team building, decision making, and scaling all at once. At CPO Playbook, we get it. That's why our podcast, ranked in the top 10% worldwide, tackles the toughest leadership challenges with insights to help you lead smarter and grow faster. Tune into the CPO Playbook podcast because leadership doesn't come with a manual, but we're pretty close.
I think it should be in everyone's job description, though. It should be, and it should be, like, because it is their job to use the technology. Like, if you're changing CRM system, right? I think it is in their job to do it. But I do think the behavior change is another part where companies usually miss out, and they just think that, oh, we can tell people to change and they will do it. But actually, many times people don't know how. And whether it's, technology adoption is more straightforward because you can tell them how to use the software and so on. But if it's a change from, like, we have this mindset in the company, like a hardware mindset to a software mindset, that's much harder to do. So the enablement of them, the behavior change, and also, even if it is technology adoption, if you're rolling out a new HRIS system or a CRM platform, making sure that people get the change and the comms when they're doing something in that system. I think the timing is another thing that people miss out, and they bombard you with 10 emails about this new CRM system. And then later, like 3 days later, when you're in the new CRM system, you have forgotten all about those 10 emails, right? So making sure they get the comms and the knowledge and the training when they're actually doing it, I think is another big part.
I love that. What I saw, and where I see technology adoption is right now is it's a lot of in-app training. So when they log into whatever it is, the CRM, then the training happens there. They log in. It's like, okay, here is this, and here is that. Okay, you want to do a performance review? Okay, here's how to do that. And so a person that maybe, like, performance reviews are great to think about, because they might not do them but quarterly or twice a year or once a year or whatever. So they don't log into that software every day. So it's almost like every time they log into the software, they have to be retrained on, like, what that is, how to make it work. I did have a separate question, though. It is about culture. So I wrote last night to a journalist, actually, and the question that he posed to me was about HR and culture. And I came back and I said, listen, first of all, why does HR own culture? Why do they own that? Why specifically? They can't control it. It's something that's in the value system of the board and the leadership team, and it's also all the way down to the receptionist. They can't do anything to control any of those things. I don't know why when someone first thought up the idea, like, oh yeah, HR, they've got culture. They should have never ever taken that on. Like, it was just a bad idea for HR to own culture, just in general. But you know culture a hell of a lot better than I do. So how do you get people to think about culture kind of in a 2024 perspective as opposed to 1980 perspective?
Yeah, the 1980 perspective is not going to serve anyone apart from maybe the people that are still alive in the 1980s, but it's not that many of us. So, and I completely agree with your statement. It shouldn't be HR's responsibility. I go nuts every time I see a head of culture title. And it's like, head of culture? Like, how can you be a head of culture? And they usually sit in the HR team, right? And many times it's head of employee experience and culture. And, like, yes, you can do things that impact the employee experience and make that easier. 100%. But, like, head of culture, exactly to your point, CEO is, in my view, 60% of culture, who your CEO is. Yeah. And then the other 40% is who the rest in the company are. But if the CEO is not manifesting that culture and is that culture, frankly, I think it's going to be very hard to build the culture that you want. And I've seen this happen in many large companies that we work with, where the CEO in one particular case, he was like, why aren't people changing? And this is a 20,000 person company. He's like, why aren't people changing? And I was like, because you are not changing. You are still the same person. You're still talking in the same way. You haven't changed. So it's 100% about leadership. And then I think what people underestimate, like culture is a very soft word, right? And people talk about culture all the time. I think really what it comes down to are behavior change, like behaviors, mindsets, how you think, how you make decisions. And the best way to drive culture is to see across the organization who actually have these values and these decision making and this, like who represents the culture already. And then what can you do to amplify them? Don't send more emails from the HR department. Like that's not going to work. Right. But if you have Ryan in sales and William in finance, Ryan and William represent our culture. These are our values. How can you make sure they're more visible? You amplify them. People can look up to them. That's the best way to drive culture, because people become what they see around them and what they respect and what they look up to.
So let me ask this real quick, Ryan. So how does a company figure out what their culture actually is as opposed to what they want it to be? Like the aspirational culture? And I'll give you an example, something I've done in the past where I've sent surveys out to our employees and basically said, all right, 3 employees, they're setting up an office on the moon. So who are the employees that best kind of exemplify who we are? And why? Give me an example of something that they did that makes you think that they'd be great to help set up the new office. And what I was trying to get at is sort of basic, but what I was trying to get at was, who are those people? First of all, like who does everyone think those people are? Because it's probably not what I think. But secondly, what were the actions that they saw or observed that was emblematic of our culture? And I'm sure there's a more sophisticated. Sure there's a more sophisticated way to do that. However, it was basic, and it was only 50, 60 employees, so it wasn't that bad. But the responses were fascinating, as to because it was none of them were the people that I thought. So I had a different idea of who those people were going to be. I didn't know what the experiences were going to be, but I had a different idea of who would go to the moon.
Well, now you look at those people that they selected and compare that to what you thought your culture was versus.
I know.
So, Nellie, on top of his question, as you're answering that, should a company fight to change the culture, or fight to, not maybe change the culture is not the right word. Should they fight to make the culture what they feel it should be, as opposed to what it already is in the company?
That's good.
So culture transformation is one of the top transformations right now, because in the last 10 years, it was more digital transformation and technology transformation. Right. Now people have come to the realization that, we can't just buy more tech and software because our people haven't changed. So they have these like super fancy new systems, but then the people are still
stupid people.
And they do.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud.
Wow.
Did I say that out loud? I gotta hit that damn mute button quicker.
So that's why culture transformation has kind of risen to the forefront. And there is a saying that I think it's from Netflix. I think it might have been Reed and Netflix that said this, that culture is who you hire, fire, and promote. And to both of your questions, can you change a culture that you have, and should you aspire to make it what you want it to be? Yes, you should absolutely aspire to build the culture that you want it to be. How do you do that, and how do you find out what culture you have? Look at who did you hire in the last 12 months, who did you fire, and who did you promote? And then look at why did you hire that person, why did you promote that person most of all, and then who did you fire and why? And if you, for example, look at the people that you're promoting and you see the people that you have promoted are the ones that were maybe the loudest, most political, and managed to get the senior leaders' attention in the best way, that is your culture. That is what your culture rewards, because people will behave in a way that they get rewarded, right? And if you look at why you promote people, that's a big answer to your culture. So one way of changing culture is actually to look at how can you change who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote. And maybe instead of promoting those political loud people, you should actually fire them. If you don't want a political environment, fire your political people. And promote the ones that are authentic and real and more meritocratic, and implement a meritocratic promotion system. So I think those three, like, I like the way they've simplified it with hire, fire, and promote. And that's what I look at too. And then you have all the
too. Leadership drives that.
100%. Yeah. And leadership drives that. And leadership, if you have leadership that is usually insecure, fearful, very big egos, they will lead political cultures. And they will promote people that make them feel good rather than people who question them. And they will
go out
promote,
on a ledge and say mostly male, but no, without any empirical data to back that up.
That's a survey of one, by the way.
Oh, that's a survey of one. I'm going to go ahead and say that's about 80% male. Okay. Anyhow, sorry, Nellie.
It's also because you have a lot of, like, if you take the white male above 45 years of age, you have a lot of those in leadership positions. So they are also overrepresented in the big ego.
In that survey of one?
Yeah,
so that might be why they come up. It starts with leaders. And if you have leaders that promote, like, oh, this person made me feel good. They said what I wanted to hear. I feel great. Now my ego was nice. Like, that was polished. Yeah, that's what you get. So, and that's why the CEO is so critical.
You said something that kind of stood out for me there. That's your culture, because that's what your culture rewards.
Mm-hmm.
So it might not be what you want your culture to be. From a CEO level or a founder, co-founder level, you may not want your culture to be that way. But your leadership is rewarding that. Therefore,
I could see a lot of boards, Ryan, having a lot of boards, a lot of executive leadership teams having this quandary of how the hell did we get here?
Yeah.
And someone not recognizing we got here because this is what we did: hire, promote, and fire. We didn't lay down the guardrails correctly and communicate the importance of the guardrails and follow through. So last question for me. I know Ryan will have others. I've been on record. So New York Times puts out an article a couple of years ago about Amazon's culture being bad. And I fought that because I don't think you can have a bad culture outside of toxicity and sexual harassment and illegal. Like the cartel has every cartel has a culture, right? Yeah. Okay, fair. Not what I'm talking about. But Amazon has a very similar culture to most investment banks on Wall Street. It's your shark-infested waters, best idea wins, meritocracy. There is no such thing as work-life balance. This culture that they've created is maybe not a culture that I would thrive in, but it's not a bad culture. It's a culture where those types of individuals at that career stage or personality or otherwise, that's what they're looking for. They want to be in that culture. So, okay, you're the expert, turns out. How off am I when I say there is no such thing as bad culture? Again, excusing the illegalities and toxicity and all that other stuff that's pretty basic.
Are you looking at that more as an opinion of that person?
Me?
Yeah. So you read the article. That's their
opinion.
No,
I thought the article
was culture.
I thought the article was retarded.
Right.
Because I thought it was bad. I thought it was a hit piece.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was their opinion of what the toxic culture was.
I think they were basic. I think it was a hit piece. I think they were paid to do it. So I'm really jaded and cynical when it comes to this shit. But basically, I thought that this was, let's position Amazon as evil. It's like, it's not like an evil. It's just, you go to Goldman Sachs, you'll find those two organizations operate the exact same way. So if you hate this one and they're evil, well, this one over here is just as evil. But anyhow, again, Nellie, you're the expert. Please tear all that apart.
No, I think there is no such thing as bad culture. I mean, illegalities and so on aside, I mean, anything that is illegal is illegal and full stop. But besides that, I don't think there is such a thing as bad culture. And this is why I think it's so important to hire the people that would appreciate that kind of culture. Because the people who think that is a bad culture, like if you hire people who are like work-life balance is the number one item to them, right? Then they're not going to enjoy that environment. Yeah, that's not a good place. So you need to ensure that what your culture is something that you communicate during the recruitment process. People know what they're getting themselves into, and also what you as an employer can offer, right? Like, you might not be able to offer the highest pay or the best benefits package, but you can offer this type of flexibility, or like this type of culture, or like you work in this way. Like, you need to be very clear on who you are and what you can offer, and then hire people who are looking for that. So don't hire people who want to have work-life balance, and then, like, just because they want maybe a big brand, so they align on the big brand to go to Amazon, but they don't align on the work-life balance. So, and then to them, that will be a bad culture, right? So, but I don't think there's such a thing as a wrong culture for some people. For that person, exactly. But there's not like a bad culture overall.
Love it. Ryan, what do you got?
I don't think I'm going to add anything else. I think this is good.
Well, I like that you brought it back to transparency and communications. So you brought it back to recruiting. You brought it back to that hire, promote, fire, etc. So in that situation, it's like, if you communicate, hey, you're going to be working 80 hours, is what it is. Now, we'll pay you 40% more than anybody else. Great. But you're going to work 80 hours. That's it. Yeah. And if your ideas aren't good, at one point, we won't promote you. You know, it's like that communication, that transparency of what is the culture. I think first of all, I'm glad that you brought it back to communications and transparency, because I think that's where we fail a lot in employer branding, is we put our best, shiniest, most perfect self forward. And that's not what they're going to get after they get hired.
Exactly.
So,
100%.
Nellie, thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah. This has been I've been looking forward to this.
It's
all
probably
week,
one of our better conversations this week.
100%. 100%.
And it's
Thank
Thursday,
you so
so we're
much.
almost
Love
at the
chatting
end
with
of the
you
week.
too. If it's Monday 9 a.m., that would be not so great.
Good point. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for educating the audience. We appreciate you.